Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm going to follow up a bit on Tiany's presentation. Actually, I'm going to talk about a project with Tiany and also with one of our other colleagues, George Gui. And we, as let's say, we're trying to build digital twins here at CBS. And yeah, so it's a very exciting ongoing project, actually. And I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're doing. So I think it's pretty non-controversial to say that 2025 will be the year of agentic AI. We're seeing this huge trend in fragmented vertical applications in which AI is playing the role of an agent, negotiating on your behalf, performing tasks on your behalf. Maybe you can think of an AI real estate agent, AI doctor, AI lawyer. So we're kind of seeing all of this proliferation of applications of AI being an agent for us. It's a business model that's easy to deploy across multiple verticals, and is really picking up in a very major way. And so I think there's a couple of ways in which AI agents could differ, and different type of use cases. In some use cases, we care more about the skills. So let's say if you want to have an AI agent who's going to do trade some stocks or be a doctor, you want the best possible agent. You want a super agent who's going to know everything and have no flow, kind of have the best possible performance, and you need just one agent who's always going to be right and who's going to be able to perform very well. In other applications, actually, we care more about heterogeneity. So maybe actually we don't want one perfect agent, we want a panel of imperfect agents. So as Tiany said earlier, maybe we want to do opinion surveys, political surveys. So in that case, we don't necessarily want to have one super agent. We want to have a panel of agents that are going to reflect the diversity of humans. Maybe if we want to do market research, it's a very similar thing. Maybe if we want to do creativity, we want kind of ideas that reflect human experiences, human backgrounds. So maybe actually in that case, we want more heterogeneity. So there's two different types. Here, actually, we're focusing on the latter one. We're focusing on applications of AI agents in which we care more about the heterogeneity. We want to replicate a panel that is going to be representative of imperfect humans to be able to simulate their behavior and predict how they would behave. And so can we then capture this heterogeneity across people? And as Tiany said, actually, a lot of times if we build agents in a very simple way, there won't be as much heterogeneity. They will all be kind of the same. So how do we capture this heterogeneity in the population? And then can we use that then to predict how people would respond? So if I want to do, let's say, an A/B test, can I actually simulate the difference between A and B by asking some of these synthetic users to respond to A and B, and then see which one would perform better. So that's kind of the promise here. Very attractive for many companies, and so we're seeing a lot of companies offering these services. Tiany already talked about some of those. Companies basically offering their clients to be able to create these synthetic users who are going to be able to do focus groups, surveys, opinion polls, and so on and so forth for them. So there's a bunch of those, and it's a very long list. Every week we hear about a new company doing this. It's pretty impressive. All right, but there are a few unanswered questions. And first of all, does it actually work? We just saw from Tiany that actually it might not always work. You can get really wrong predictions. You can get maybe biased in different ways answers. So we need to know if it works. If you ask these companies, they will tell you it works, but there's no uniform benchmark that we can all use to actually test whether this approach works, evaluate the performance, improve the performance. So there's a need for, we think, a common benchmark to be able for people to test whether this approach actually works. Also, it's not clear what type of behavior we can predict with digital twins. So is it more about predicting preferences, purchasing behavior, opinions? It's not really clear what is the range of applications with these digital twins. And then also, what do you need as input to feed into the digital twins? So is it enough to just create a persona that is just going to say, suppose you are Alex Smith, you're 34, you're a PM at a tech firm living in Texas? Is that enough? Or do you need more information about the person to capture how they behave and to be able to simulate their behavior in different contexts? And then also, how do you build these twins? So this is a bit more technical, but there's different ways in which you can incorporate this information. Those of you who are taking my class, in-context learning, RAG, fine-tuning. So these are also practical questions. How do we actually build those tools? So we're trying to answer these questions. And so that's why we're right now going through this, we think, pretty ambitious project, which was generously funded by the school, so we're very grateful for that. We're actually creating a panel of digital twins that each are going to be copies of real people. So actually today, after this, I'm going to come back to my office, and I'm going to close the final wave of data collection. So we've been doing this for a few weeks. We have over 2,000 real people who have actually they're a national representative of a panel of the US population. And they each took over 2 hours of surveys across 4 different waves. So we started about a month ago. We have, and then we went through 4 different waves. So today we're just finishing the final wave. And they went through a very extensive battery of tests. I can show you some examples, but we have some personality tests, Big 5 personality, conscientiousness, need for cognition, individualism, depression, all sorts of personality psychology tests. They basically did an IQ test. We have their intelligence in terms of what we call fluid intelligence, like math problems, crystallized, more like knowledge. We have a bunch of financial literacy questions. We had them go through surveys of economic preferences. So are you risk averse, loss averse, your discount rate? How do you behave in different economic games? We replicated a bunch of well-known heuristics and biases experiments from behavioral economics. Sunk cost fallacy, anchoring and adjustment, false consensus. So we have them go through all of these. We also had them go through a purchase preference survey in which they answered questions about the likelihood of purchasing different products. So what we did is we split it into multiple waves. And the last wave actually is a repeat of some of the items from the first 3 waves. And now we have actually a test-retest benchmark. So we know how the same person is consistent in answering the same question after a couple of weeks. So we can use that as the best possible performance. If yourself, you're 80% of the time you're consistent with yourself, that means that we cannot really predict more than 80% of your behavior. And so we have that as the baseline, and then we'll be able to see how well we can predict your behavior based on all these other data from you. And so we want to, again, understand what we can predict, what we need as input in order to be able to predict the output. And then we'll be able to create these digital twins of these 2,000 people. And so now that we've put this data set together, which cost a lot of money and took a lot of work, what we're going to do, of course, is we're going to share it with everyone for free and make it publicly available. So within a month, we're hoping to be able to publish this data set, again, make it freely available to the community, to create, again, this common benchmark that people will be able to use to actually assess whether it works, how can it work, how can it be made better, and be able to understand together how digital twins can be made to work. We're also going to create an app in which, so the data will be more for researchers. We want to really understand this from a research perspective, but for practitioners, we actually are going to also make available a website or an app in which people will be able to answer the questions and simulate the answers to these questions from these 2,000 people. So you'll be able, let's say if you have a survey, for example, instead of sending the survey to your cluster mates and your friends, you can actually maybe run the survey on these 2,000 synthetic users and be able to get an answer within an hour from this representative sample of 2,000 consumers. So that's what we're doing. Again, we're just in the middle of it now. We're finishing data collection today, and then we're hoping to publish this within a few weeks. And so stay tuned for maybe more on this and some free resources which could be helpful to run surveys and experiments. Thank you very much. Move to Q&A. Any questions? Yes?
So as people change a long time, how often do you need to update this data?
That's a great question. Yeah, that's a really good question. So what we're going to do actually now, so we used Prolific, which is a panel provider. So actually we have an ability to get back to these 2,000 people through Prolific. So we plan to actually run more studies with them. And so one of the things we could do is actually collect new data on the same people over time to be able to refresh a little bit their data, to be able to refresh the twins as well. But yeah, that's a great question. And again, we don't know. Some of these are pretty stable, like your personality profile. But some of these could be more preferences or opinions that could change a little bit more over time. So we have to understand how often you need to refresh and what data you need to be able to refresh those twins. And that's a great question. There was another question, perhaps? No? Yes, in the back over there.
Hi there, Professor Toubia. Thank you so much. So you mentioned that with digital twin, you're using intercontext learning, RAG, and fine-tuning. Can you talk a bit more about how you're using that specifically?
Yes. Oh, thank you. So in context, which is like kind of the easiest one, okay, well, let me give you the short answer. So in context, we have like a bunch of data from you. We're just going to dump all of that into a prompt. So basically, we're going to say, here's the background, and then we just let the model just answer the new question based on that. RAG actually would be kind of, here's like your answer to 200 questions. Here's a new question that I want to answer. Let me find the 5 questions that are most relevant to the new question to be able to really give you more relevant information. Fine-tuning would really be actually rerunning the whole model and creating a version of Llama or GPT that is really specifically tailored for this task. But actually, one thing that's, it seems like the data really are the key. So once we have the right data, maybe it's not a huge deal whether you use one or the other, as long as you have the right data. So I think the first thing we want to understand is are the data, what's in the data itself. And then later, maybe we try to optimize on the edges, like whether we use one or the other. But once you have the data, many of these models should be able to pick up patterns in the data just with a very simple, just in context, just throw the data to the LLM, and the LLM will be able to figure it out. All right. Now my colleague is going to talk about double agents. Sorry. All right.